Last night, WWE was in Las Vegas. They had their WrestleMania 40 kickoff event. I was here with you live on YouTube. We had a very impromptu stream to talk about the road to WrestleMania. What was going to be the main event? Who would challenge Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship? Cody Rhodes came out. He had a change of heart. Big change of heart from what we heard from him on SmackDown 1 week ago. Remember where we were 1 week ago tonight when I was here with you live and we had a lot to talk about with that closing segment. Well, as it turned out, Cody Rhodes is challenging Roman Reigns for the title. We did not get Roman Reigns on the show tonight. You didn't think Roman Reigns was going to work 2 nights in a row. I mean, here I've been pitching ideas for him to do just that at WrestleMania. What the hell was I thinking? I'm more likely to get hit by a meteor right now, live, as I am recording, as I am streaming with you here on YouTube, than Roman Reigns is to work back-to-back nights. So there was no Roman Reigns, there was no Rock, but we did get Triple H. And if you remember at the end of the event last night in the back, The Rock was all pissed off, and The Rock walked up to Triple H and he told Triple H, "Fix this. If you don't fix it, we will." Triple H came out tonight. He didn't fix it, but he made it very clear that, in fact, Cody Rhodes is going to WrestleMania to challenge Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship. And the other thing that Triple H did tonight on SmackDown at the very beginning of the show was he very clearly fired some shots back at The Rock. Back at the idea that The Rock is on the board of directors now, and so The Rock can call the shots. The Rock, in effect, is his boss, and he can do whatever he wants. Triple H pushed back against that idea tonight, and made it very clear that that is not the case. So they are teasing a power struggle angle here in WWE. There is a power struggle brewing between The Rock and his faction on that side, and then on the other side, you have Triple H. Now, when you have a situation like this, where you have these two former wrestlers who are past rivals, and they are teasing that something is going to go down between these two, you think they're building to a match. We're going to get The Rock against Triple H. The only problem is we're about 7 or 8 years too late, and Triple H can't work a match. He's done. Triple H is not getting back in the ring. So that simply is not going to be possible. Unfortunately, he can't make it happen. Although it may yet play out in real life. Just because it can't happen in the ring on TV or on pay-per-view does not mean that it can't happen. If you have been paying attention to what has been going on in wrestling over the last couple of months, whether it be New Japan, whether it be Stardom, whether it be TNA, or frankly, even right here in WWE, there's been a lot of crazy shit going on at the top of the hierarchy. The power structure in a lot of these companies looks very different now than it did only a couple of months ago. So never say never. Can't rule anything out. But there was another question coming out of the event last night, and the question concerns Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is the World Heavyweight Champion. Seth Rollins was right in the mix there. At the very end, he was mixing it up. It was him and Cody on stage. You had Rock and Roman on the other side. It looked like maybe they were building to some kind of a tag team match. But they made it clear tonight that at WrestleMania, unless he's working twice on back-to-back nights, Seth Rollins is not doing a tag match. Seth Rollins is going to be defending, as he should, his World Heavyweight Championship. The only question is, who is it going to be against? Because it was going to be Seth Rollins defending his title very clearly against CM Punk. That cannot happen now. That's off the table. And so they've had to readjust. They've been doing a lot of that lately. And so their new plan now is to go in a different direction with somebody else. We are getting an Elimination Chamber match, which we would have gotten one anyway because Punk didn't win the Royal Rumble. But instead of Punk, they've had to come up with a plan B. And that plan B involves a series of qualifying matches involving a whole variety of different people from Raw and from SmackDown to decide who will go to WrestleMania to challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Those qualifying matches began tonight, and our first 2 participants in the chamber have already been decided. It will be Randy Orton. He'll fill one of the slots. Filling the second slot, Drew McIntyre. Those two are official for the Chamber. They have officially qualified. I'm going to show you who the other participants will be in the remaining qualifying matches, and then we can talk about where I think things are going to be headed. Because I like what they've done. Some people may want to nitpick about it, which I understand, but I'll explain to you why they're doing it the way they're doing it for a very particular reason. The other thing tonight is we now know who the challengers will be. For the Undisputed Tag Team titles in Perth, we had a match tonight between DIY and the team of Pete Dunne, or maybe I should say Pete Dunne, as Kit Wilson would say, against DIY. We now have #1 contenders for the tag team titles as the card for Elimination Chamber begins to fill out a little bit more. This is your Friday Night Smackdown review. I'm back with you again, 3 nights in a row. How can you miss me if I don't go away? It is Friday night. It is February 9th, 2024. Like and subscribe. 450. I upped the goal tonight. 450 likes is the goal for Be the Booker later. Super chats are open. There is a few new ones, but there's a new $28 one that came directly out of the show last night. So that is brand new on the list in the description, courtesy of the High Chief. Row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Well, here's another one. Row Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Well, row that man down the stream, grab an oar, and start rowing.
Hi, Chief Peter Maivia.
Name out your fucking mouth!
Well, that didn't take very long. Hey, Brian Musha. I literally just got done talking about that. Brian Musha just broke in the brand new High Chief super chat. You keep the High Chief's name out your fucking mouth. You hear me? Hey, Brian, thank you. I also want to say thank you for the 45,000 plus views for last night's stream. We're approaching 50,000 and then some. So thank you. And that was, again, I told you guys on Wednesday night I probably would do something. I wasn't sure. I'd let you know. And so that was really only on a few hours' notice, and then boom, almost 50,000 views and counting. So thank you for that. If you missed it, go back when you're done here and check out my kickoff review. Now, this was week 2. You like that, don't you? You like it. I try to keep you entertained. Shout out to Steve, too. Steve Mello. He's the one who conceived of the idea. I don't know how his brain works, but it works in weird ways. But you could thank him as well. It was week 2 of the Corey Graves, Wade Barrett experiment. They took over last week as the new announced team on SmackDown. And like last week, I thought they did a fine job. It has not taken Corey Graves very long to adapt to the role of play-by-play. He was doing some play-by-play before as far as calling some of the moves. I don't want to say it's not a heavy lift because it's a tough job to be a lead announcer. It's why, Kevin Patrick just wasn't the right guy for the job. That was for other reasons, just in terms of the presentation and his voice. And I'm not saying he couldn't do all the things that they were kind of telling him in his headset to do. But there's a lot of things that go into that position. And you're being told to do this and plug this and go here and promote that. So it's not just calling the moves. And I think so far, 2 weeks in, Corey Graves is doing a fine job. But the show opened with a recap of last week's events. Last night's events in Las Vegas, and Triple H coming down to the ring. Already in the ring were the 2 general managers for Raw and SmackDown, Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. And Triple H got into the ring. He said last night they took a hard left turn. They've been on the road to WrestleMania the last few weeks, and this week they took a hard left turn, and the road to WrestleMania is now on fire. But it feels really good, and he came out here tonight to clear up one thing, and the crowd interrupted with chants of Rocky sucks. He said it felt like there was some confusion, like maybe some people don't know their role. Like they try to assert their authority when they really don't have any. He really doesn't care where they sit. He said the answers come from one place and one place only, and right now you're looking at them. So making it very clear who the lawman is in WWE. So in the main event of WrestleMania 40, Roman Reigns will row the boat down the stream all the way to Philadelphia, and he is going to defend his undisputed WWE Championship, and he will do so against Cody Rhodes in the main event. And we got loud chants of Cody. Now he says there are some people in the back who are going to be disappointed by that decision, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you don't like that decision. So with that being said, he said, welcome to the road to WrestleMania. So again, he never said the word Rock, but he didn't have to. It was very clear who he was referring to. That was coming out of the events of last night. And I like what they're doing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. As far as a weekly, episodic storyline to play out, as far as Rock and Triple H are concerned, it definitely creates a lot of interest. Now, Triple H can't work. He can't work a match. So when you're doing an angle like that, obviously this is going to feed into the main angle with Cody and Roman. But you might have people who say, well, they're building to Rock and Triple H, or why are they building something with Rock and Triple H if they can't work? Look, we'll see where things go as far as the two of them are concerned. Even though Triple H can't work, who knows? They could always have a surrogate in this place, right? You never know where this might go as far as that goes. But it definitely makes things more interesting. Now that they're taking this approach where Rock is embracing the reaction. He is embracing his heel side, which we have not seen in, God, has it been 20 years? 21 years since Hollywood Rock? And so now we have to wait and see what happens next week when he's back on the show. But at that point, he handed things over to Nick Aldis. And Aldis said that we have to shift our attention to Seth Rollins and the World Heavyweight Championship. After extensive discussions, they have collectively agreed that Seth's challenger will be determined in Perth at the Elimination Chamber. In an Elimination Chamber match, which, again, you had to know that was going to be the case because Cody Rhodes already won the Royal Rumble and Cody Rhodes already made his choice. You have an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view coming up. How else would they decide who the number one contender is going to be for Seth's title? And he said to kick things off tonight, they are going to do so with a series of qualifying matches. And to reiterate the fact that WWE management is a united front, he said that he would hand things over to his colleague, the general manager for Monday Night Raw, Mr. Adam Pearce. So even though Pearce and Aldis have been bickering back and forth, and they've been at each other's throats here for a while, they're showing a united front now. So they're all on the same page. And Adam Pearce chimed in, and at that point, they put a graphic up on the screen. And in this graphic, they showed the 12 men who are going to be participating in the qualifying matches over these next 3 shows. So tonight, Raw this Monday, and then SmackDown next week, to decide who would be occupying the chamber. And I want to throw that up on the screen for you right now, because these right here are the 12 men that were selected. Randy Orton, Bronson Reed, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, AJ Styles, The Miz, Bobby Lashley, Ivar, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, Dominic Mysterio, and LA Knight. Those are the men that are going to be qualifying or in qualifying matches for the Elimination Chamber. Bombs away! Everybody take cover. Is everybody okay? Is everybody all right? Cody and his fucking pyro. This guy. That was our friend ABK, who just chimed in with a $411 super chat.
They like me. They really like me.
ABK says, I wanted a match with Aaron against Fahad against JM for WrestleMania 40. Wow, he wants a fatal four-way. What is that, like a super chat fatal four-way? Does that mean, should I be the special referee? I'll be the referee. How about we'll make it happen. We'll do a fatal four-way Mania. Hey, ABK, man, thank you. Holy shit. 412, really 412. $412, man. Holy fucking shit, man. ABK just comes out of nowhere with these things. My God. He is the man. He should be in the Elimination Chamber. So let's address some of the criticism that I'm sure there's going to be for this match here. You look at these men that you see on your screen right now, and it's clearly a mix of talent from Raw and from SmackDown. Does it make sense to have SmackDown talents challenging for the Raw title? No, it does not. I agree. But here's the reason why they're doing it. They're doing it because CM Punk was going to fight for the title and he got hurt. Their plans blew up. And if you take a look at the Monday Night Raw roster, especially if Gunther is not going to be involved at the Chamber, there just isn't enough star power there, right? And in their view, they feel the same way. There is not enough star power for a number one contenders Chamber match. And honestly, Gunther should not be in there anyway if he's not going to win it. If Gunther is going to be in the Elimination Chamber and he's not going to win, then keep him the fuck out. He shouldn't even be in the match. I'm not even sure he's going to be allowed to be on the show for all the reasons I've already talked about him not being able to travel out of the country. If he's going to be wrestling anybody, it's going to be Jey Uso for the Intercontinental title, which they may well be building for WrestleMania. Right? We all thought it was going to be Jimmy and Jey at WrestleMania, which I don't really give a shit about, but they've been building it for many months just by keeping them separated like this so they could bring them back together, right? They've talked openly about wanting to have a match together at WrestleMania, so it stands to reason that you think, okay, that's why they're doing this. If they want to go a different way, it's fine with me, right? We already saw them at the beginning of the Royal Rumble a few weeks ago. We got the match there, but Gunther's not going to be in there. We already know that. And then you look at the rest of the roster. Finn Balor is on the show, right? But he's defending the tag team title. You have Damian Priest. He's going to be on the show. He's defending the tag team title. And you search around for big names. You've got Sami Zayn, who just got bounced tonight in a qualifying match. He's not even going to be in the Chamber unless they do something where they have like a last chance way of getting in. They've done stuff like that before. So who's to say that Sami still won't find his way in? But the well runs dry after that, right? You've got Andrade. Andrade just joined the Raw roster, has not even had a single match yet back in WWE. You could throw him in there. To me, he would be a perfectly acceptable entrant in the match because I know what he brings to the table. But you don't have a lot of great options. So that's why they have to outsource it and they have to look to SmackDown. Doing it this way allows them to get more star power into the match, some bigger names. It makes things more interesting. And now you get a few weeks worth of, it's probably only about a week. You get at least a week's worth of television out of these qualifying matches, which is why it's always smart to do this sort of thing because you could drag this out for a week, 2 weeks. They're doing it with the women as well because they're having a women's chamber match. So I think it's smart of them to do it that way. And by the way, if Cody Rhodes wins the WWE title at WrestleMania, Raw is going to have to make up for that loss because that title is on SmackDown. So if Cody goes and challenges for the belt and wins, Raw is going to have to probably grab one of these guys anyway, and they're going to have to port them over to SmackDown because there's going to be a huge hole left on the Raw side if Cody wins the title and he ends up going to SmackDown. But I like the fact that here in this angle, they at least tried to explain why they did what they did. They had them say, look, we are forging a united front. We're coming together, even if we don't like each other, right? We're coming together and we're doing this for the good of the company. At least they tried to explain why they're doing it this way. And like I said, they're doing the same thing with the women's chamber match. Also, it's a mix of Raw talent and SmackDown talent. Boy, you want to talk about a lack of depth. You could also take a look at Monday Night Raw, but take a look at the women's roster. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair have already qualified for the chamber, which is great. You've got 4 more spots to fill. And you look at the Raw roster, and I'm not saying they don't have talent there, but Do you really want to see an Elimination Chamber match to crown a #1 contender for Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania with people like Candice LeRae? Do we need Candice LeRae in there? Do we need Caden Carter in there? Do we need people like that who are not booked at that level? Xia Li in an Elimination Chamber match? No. So you've got to bring in some talent from SmackDown to try to make this thing interesting. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see just Raw women in that match when Rhea Ripley has already blown through some people, and there really is nobody else, not very many people. She'll beat Nia Jax in Australia. And after that, there aren't very many people who I would consider credible challengers to Rhea Ripley. So keep those people out, and you got to mix and match. And you have some from Raw, maybe 3 from Raw and 3 from SmackDown. There you go. So I know why they're doing it. I agree with it. Frankly, I'm happy they're doing it this way because they have no other choice. Because a lot of those names have no business being in an Elimination Chamber match. I'm sorry. You people want Maxine Dupree in the Elimination Chamber? Did you not see that match on Monday night? Go watch that match and come back to me and tell me you want to see Maxine Dupree or Valhalla in the Elimination Chamber match. Go book your own Elimination Chamber match. I don't want to see that. Now, Adam Pearce said 12 superstars, 6 matches over 3 events, and it kicks off right now with AJ Styles against Drew McIntyre. That's what I like to hear. That's how you kick off SmackDown. In terms of matches, you kick off SmackDown with Drew McIntyre against AJ Styles. That's good in my book. So Drew came out, and he thanked the fans for making his new t-shirt #1. That's the new shirt where it's him over a gravesite, giving the peace sign. And on the tombstone, it says CM Punk's WrestleMania main event, rest in peace, 2024 to 2024. Went to #1 this week on WWE Shop. He called himself DM Hunk. And he promised that CM Punk will not see 1 penny of the profits from those t-shirt sales. Then he took credit for Cody Rhodes choosing Roman Reigns to finish his story. He said that he single-handedly saved WrestleMania. And how did he do this? He saved WrestleMania by taking out CM Punk, by causing Cody Rhodes to go finish his story, and now he's going to go save the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania, the title that they buried 6 feet under just 1 week ago, and again last night. But he's going to save the title to give us a champion that we can all be proud of, and a champion that is best for business. Drew McIntyre is fantastic. He's firing on all cylinders right now. I got nothing but love for Drew McIntyre. Hopefully he can keep it up. We had McIntyre one-on-one here against AJ Styles. Before the match started, though, LA Knight's music hit. Where are all these people that have said that LA Knight, man, boy, he's super cooled off? Go back and listen to this reaction when he came out. It looks like the challenge has been accepted. We got a little power struggle going on here. We're having a party here on the street. We're Barry Horowitz now.
Oh my God, a super chat bomb.
Wow.
That's a bigger bomb than the New York Mets.
We have got a little competition, a little healthy competition going on here on the stream tonight. You love to see it. That was Fahad. And Fahad just chimed in with a $226 super chat. He says, I accept ABK's challenge. Well, he pitched a 4-way. That's only 2. That's 2 of the 4. So we have a match. We have a one-on-one match so far. We'll see where this goes. This is a better storyline than we get on most TV shows here. We'll see how the storyline progresses as the night goes on. But Fahad, man, salute. Thank you, sir. But go back and listen to that reaction that LA Knight got when he came out. These people were very happy to see him. And he sat down to do commentary. He wouldn't shut up. He was going on and on commentary, but that's what he does. He's a chatty guy. Steve says, that's right. Aaron needs to finish the story. So AJ went after McIntyre's knee to start things out. Styles went to the top. McIntyre chopped him off the top rope to the floor outside. From there, McIntyre threw AJ over the barricade into the timekeeper's area. That took us into the commercial break. After that, Styles hit a tornado DDT. He set up for a Styles clash. McIntyre countered out of it. He ran AJ into the corner, and McIntyre lifted Styles. He climbed to the second rope. Styles was able to maneuver out of that and hit a running powerbomb for a 2 count. AJ tried to lift McIntyre, but Drew got out of it, connected with a Future Shock DDT. McIntyre set up for the Claymore. Drew ran at him. AJ, though, moved. He worked a calf crusher. Drew was able to make it to the ropes for the break. Styles went for a springboard move. McIntyre, though, caught him and sent him crashing to the floor. And McIntyre then hurled AJ over the announce desk, and LA Knight got out of the way just in the nick of time. He backed up. Now, Styles is on the ground, and AJ is basically laying at this man's feet. And then Knight, just to be a dick, he had a water bottle in his hand. He was drinking his water. He put the water bottle back down on the announce desk, but he put it back down with the cap off, sideways, laying down. And so the water began to pour out onto AJ on the floor, and that pissed him off. AJ got to his feet. Knight had the water bottle. He goes, "What, you want a drink here? You want some?" And he tried to hand him the water bottle, and AJ smacked the bottle out of his hand. I don't know if you noticed, the bottle goes flying up against the barricade. It looked like it got wedged. Like, he smacked the bottle so hard, somehow it looked like it got wedged, like between the floor and the barricade. So that's how pissed off AJ Styles was. Drew then nailed AJ from behind, and this time he got knocked into LA Knight. Drew threw AJ back inside. Styles rolled McIntyre up. Knight, though, got up on the apron, and he was distracting the referee. And so I think Knight ended up getting knocked off the apron by AJ, but when AJ turned around, he turned around into a Claymore kick. And that was it for AJ Styles. Drew McIntyre qualifies for the Elimination Chamber. And that spot, by the way, Knight getting involved and the referee was distracted, it got him boos. Because people like AJ, even though AJ, if you think about it, since he's come back, hasn't really been a babyface. The only thing that was weird, though, is that here he was playing to the crowd like a babyface. So it's just a weird dynamic here, because they were booing LA Knight, who they love, but they also like AJ. So then they kind of booed LA Knight. But again, AJ hasn't really exactly been a babyface since he's been back, so the whole thing is kind of weird. But once Knight came out to do commentary, this was a done deal. I mean, you knew exactly how this was going to go down, and there wasn't a chance in hell that Drew McIntyre was not at least going to go to the Elimination Chamber. He certainly was not going to get bounced in a qualifier. So before the bell even rang, you knew exactly how this match was going to end. But are we looking at AJ doing the same thing now in Knight's match? Because that's what I thought when this was over. That AJ would do the same thing to him. He would reciprocate, and then both of them would not make the Elimination Chamber. And then in Perth, we would get a singles match between AJ Styles and LA Knight. And I'm still thinking that's what we're going to get. But we'll go over later what the remaining qualifying matches are going to be. I still feel that way, but I wouldn't say I'm 100% on that. Kayla Braxton interviewed Sami Zayn in the backstage area, and he said that WrestleMania season is an emotional time for a lot of people, himself included. Last year, he was in the main event. 12 months later, here we are, and he's watching his window closing very fast. Tonight, he faces Randy Orton in an Elimination Chamber match in the main event, one of the very best ever to do it. And if he should get past Orton, he's got Drew McIntyre waiting for him inside the chamber, a man that he has never beaten. And he said it's not an easy path, but it is a path, and he will take it. I almost thought when this segment was over that it was designed to shock you more when he ended up winning at the end of the show. I'm glad I didn't actually think that was going to happen, though, because it didn't happen. Poor Sami is going to have to find a different path. Didn't work out too well for him tonight. We got a pretty deadly vignette, and they filmed this. They were shown on a gazebo, overlooking some body of water somewhere. And they saw a ghostly version of Queen Elizabeth in the clouds, and she winked at them. Kit Wilson then showed his taped up, deformed hand. It looked like a fucking claw after Pete Dunne did the joint manipulation stuff to him in their last match. So his hand was all taped up and all mangled, thanks to Pete Dunne, as they are calling him. It looked, just for some reason, it made me think of the Lorna Doone cookies. That's weird. That just literally, as I said that out loud, it popped up in my head, those cookies. Those cookies, I feel like they kind of give those cookies out at every hospital. Because I've had 2 different, like, tests or procedures over the years, like in the hospital for, you know, various, like, non-serious things. And I wake up from the anesthetic, and both times they gave me cookies, and they were Lorna Doone cookies. So maybe they got a contract or something with them. I don't know. They're very good, though. If you've never had Lorna Doone cookies, there's a little plug. Hey, if you want me to be a sponsor, I'm just saying, hey, call me. So anyway, they said that they would come back to SmackDown and they would show everybody what they could do. Him and his deformed claw there. So that was the segment with Pretty Deadly. We had Bianca Belair against Michin in an Elimination Chamber qualifying match. This is for the Women's Chamber to decide who faces Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. Michin started fast, and Bianca ended up on the floor outside 30 seconds into the match, and they went to commercial. They did not waste any time. The show came back. Both women were down in the ring. Michin went for a cannonball, and Belair moved, hit a backbreaker. Bianca was on top. Michin hit a superplex for a 2 count. And then she went for Eat Defeat. Bianca countered into a KOD attempt. Michin worked out of that. She did finally hit Eat Defeat, but Bianca was close enough to the ropes that she fell out of the ring to the floor. Back inside, Michin set up for a Styles Clash. Bianca backdropped her way out of it, got her up for the KOD, dropped her, and pinned her to qualify for the Chamber, much like the Drew McIntyre match. I mean, come on. Bianca Belair and Michin. Gee, I wonder who's going to the Chamber. So even though it was preordained who was going to walk away with the win, it was a competitive match. The 7 or 8 minutes that it went, it was competitive. It wasn't a squash. You know, the very limited amount of time that Mia Yim gets on television, and it's not very much that we get to see her, she makes the most of it. You know, she made the most of it here. I thought it was a solid match, even though there was no drama around who was going to win. And Bianca becomes only the 2nd woman to qualify for the Chamber. Next Friday, we have 2 more qualifiers. And it's going to be Shotzi going one-on-one with Tiffany Stratton, which should easily be a win for Tiffany. And Naomi is going to have her first match on SmackDown in over 2 years. She goes one-on-one with Zelina Vega. So Naomi and Tiffany Stratton, after next week, should be joining Bianca and Becky. And you look at that lineup, just with those 4 women, that's a pretty good lineup. And we still have 2 more spots to fill after that. Or maybe they'll fill them on Raw this Monday. Now, in the back... Oh. We don't hear that song very often 2 different times on the same stream. ABK. Good Lord.
We're having a party here on the street. We're very hard.
ABK says, no Jay and Aaron. What a shame. Fine. Fahad will win. Acknowledge me. So he's giving up on the idea of a 4-way. He's saying, let's just do this one-on-one. That's a match I can get behind. ABK dropping another $205 super chat here on a Friday night. And I do welcome all of you here with me. We are live here on YouTube on a Friday night. After we were live on YouTube on a Thursday night. After we were live on YouTube on a Wednesday night. After we were live on YouTube on a Monday night. I know I skipped Tuesday. Fuck me. I know. But I'm glad you were with me. Because in the back, I was about to talk about Braun Breaker. In his nice suit, he showed up, walked into Triple H's office, said, I heard you want to see me. And Triple H told him how proud he is of him and that he is anxious to see what he can do at this level here on the main roster. And Breakker said, you know, I've got these two great offers. I've got a contract from Raw and I've got a contract from SmackDown. He's not sure what to do, and he was looking for any advice from Triple H on where he should go. And before Triple H could offer up any kind of advice, Paul Heyman walked in, and Triple H told Breakker to give us a second, and Breakker left, never to be seen again. And then he asked Heyman, what do you want? And Heyman said he could tell now isn't a good time for it. He could tell Triple H was not in a very good mood. And he said, look, I could tell this is not a good time. I'll come back. I'll come back next week. And when I come back next week, I'm going to be coming back with my tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and The Rock. So the tribal chief and the high chief. The high chief is above the tribal chief, for the record. Not sure why Rock cares so much since he's above Roman anyway. But he said that next week, it is official, Roman Reigns and The Rock will be on SmackDown. And Triple H told him that he was looking forward to it. And that right there is why we got no face-off tonight. Because they knew that coming out of this WrestleMania event last night, which got all of this attention and all of this social media engagement, people were going to be tuned in tonight to see what the fallout was. People were going to be tuning in thinking that Rock and or Roman would be on the show tonight. And they weren't. But you already know you're going to get people tuned in tonight. So now you tell them, no, they're going to be here next week. So you're going to have to tune in next Friday if you want to see Rock and Roman on the show. It's a smart strategy. And now they can get eyeballs on the show next week by promoting them that maybe they otherwise would not have got. Bayley was out to the ring next, the winner of the 2024 Women's Royal Rumble. Out to the ring by herself, no longer with Damage CTRL. She's all by herself. And the fans gave her a very respectful ovation. Before hearing them chant her name, she said she thought that, you know, maybe some of the fans were going to say that she deserved it. You know, that she had it coming, everything that happened to her last week when her girls turned on her. And they cut her off, the fans did, with more chants of Bayley. She said, thank you. She was very appreciative. She said, we're cool right now? She goes, all right, good, we're cool. She said the fans have watched her for all these years. They know her heart for this. They know how much this means to her. She got chants of, you deserve it. She said Damage CTRL meant everything to her. They were her family. So many times she put them before herself. She gave, and she gave, and she gave. And all they did was take from her. And she thought that everything was going to be fine. They had a plan. The Kabuki Warriors won the women's tag team titles. She was going to go on to win the Women's Royal Rumble. And maybe everything would be fine. She said that did not happen. Every time she walked into a room, they would stop talking. Or other times they would be laughing or talking behind her back. She goes, she's not an idiot. She's been in this situation far too many times not to learn her lesson. And at WrestleMania, Io is going to learn a lesson the hard way. So Dakota Kai walked out. Dakota Kai was conspicuous by her absence last week on the show, with no mention about why she wasn't there. She comes out, and she keeps asking Bayley as she's coming to the ring, have you been ghosting me? And Bayley asked her, where the hell have you been? Where were you last week? And Dakota tried to explain to her that I'm this close to being cleared. You knew I had a doctor's appointment last week. And Bayley didn't buy it. She said, you knew. She said, the whole time you knew. Right? Because the thing about it, Dakota was always the one translating for the other women when she thought that Bayley didn't understand any Japanese, right? So she said, you knew this entire time what was going on. Dakota said, look, put me in a tough spot here, but she always believed in Damage CTRL. And the fans booed. So they were not buying what she was selling. She goes, and Io did too. Until Asuka and Kairi came into the picture. And once they got in Io's head, the rest is history. And Bayley asked her, why didn't you tell me then what was going on? And Dakota said that she wanted to, but she didn't know how. It was a pretty stupid answer. She says she misses the three of them, her and Bayley and Io, the OGs of Damage Control. She said Bayley has always been like a mentor to her. Bayley is the reason why she's here right now, which, by the way, is a shoot, because it was Bayley who went to bat for her. Remember, Dakota Kai had left, and it was Bayley who wanted, and she pushed very hard for a long time, and Vince McMahon at first didn't want to do Damage Control. He just said no. But she kept fighting for this group, and she knew who she wanted in this group. And as soon as Vince went away for a little bit and Triple H took over at SummerSlam 2 years ago, he got the debut of Damage Control. And Dakota Kai was back, and Io got called up from NXT. So there's a lot of truth in what Dakota was saying here. She said it seemed like Bayley's plan was working. They were so close to having it all. She thought the situation with Kairi and Asuka would blow over, but it didn't. And Bayley said, fine, we're here now. So where do you stand? And before she could answer that, Io, Asuka, and Kairi interrupted, came to the ring. Dakota bailed. And so now Bayley was left in the ring all by herself, surrounded on three sides of the ring, until Dakota got back in the ring and she had a steel chair. And it looked like she was taking aim at Bayley. So she charged at Bayley with the chair. And Bayley moved out of the way. And then she awkwardly, she kept going, and it looked like she was aiming for Io, who dropped down off the apron. And at least, again, that's how it came off to me. Like, they wanted you to think, and she wanted Bayley, to move out of the way, or she wasn't actually aiming for her, but the audience was supposed to think that she was. I say I think because it was very clunky in execution. The execution of this was not very good. Just the way that she came at her, I don't know if it was a case where Bayley just didn't move in time, if she was a split second late or what. It just looked very awkward. But I think I get the idea of what they were going for here. So then Dakota took swings at Asuka. She dropped down off the apron. Kairi, she dropped down off the apron. And then she turned around and she teased that she might hit Bayley with the chair. We had a little bit of a standoff in the middle of the ring. And she dropped the chair instead. And then she looked back at Io and Kairi and Asuka in the aisleway. She turned around and looked back at Bayley in the ring with her. And without pledging her allegiance, the segment ended. And the crowd chanted, hug it out. They wanted these two women to hug it out. I'll bet they did. And they didn't do that. And that's how the segment ended. I don't trust this woman. I do not trust Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai is the wild card in this. Who is she going to end up siding with? She's trying to convince Bayley that she's with her. And she cares about Damage Control. And, Asuka and Kairi basically have poisoned Io's mind. It's all bullshit. I do think that in the end, Dakota will be aligned with Asuka and Io and Kairi and is going to leave Bayley out to dry. We'll see if Bayley falls for it. That's where I think she'll fall in all this. The reaction to Bayley was very positive when she came out. It didn't take much. They shot the angle last week. She comes out this week, and instead of boos, she's getting cheers. And she's getting chants of, you deserve it. And she was already getting some cheers anyway. When she won the Royal Rumble, I was in Tropicana Field that night. Place went nuts. In a happy way when Bayley won the Rumble match. So she already had some people that were cheering for her. But it didn't take much to get the fans on her side. It's been a long time since Bayley has played the role of babyface. She went heel in 2019. It's a long time. So I think she's overdue for a babyface turn. And the stars now for her have aligned because now she gets the spotlight on her. We really haven't seen a situation going into WrestleMania where the spotlight has been on Bayley. I think there might have been one WrestleMania, maybe back in 2017, where Bayley went in as the champion and left as the champion. But even then, she was never really the focal point. And now for the first time, she's in a program going into the biggest show of the year, and the attention and the focus is on her. She won her first Royal Rumble. She's going to go to WrestleMania. She'll probably win the championship there. So again, it's nice for her to get some of the shine for a change. And the fans are going along for the ride, so it's good to see. Kayla was backstage with Randy Orton. And Orton remembered Sami Zayn's words that it's not a given that people are going to automatically make it to WrestleMania. He talked about watching from the sidelines at last year's WrestleMania. And he said that it was very painful for him not to be able to be on the show. He said he's always known when to strike, and when he makes it into the chamber, he would deploy the 3 most dangerous letters in all of sports entertainment. So lame when he says that. But RKO, those are the letters. Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits elsewhere were backstage with BFAB. They made it official that BFAB is a part of their crew now, the Nameless Crew. We still don't know what they're calling themselves. There's been no mention of a name. They don't put the name on the screen. At least I didn't notice. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to go nameless. Maybe it's just Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. You may as well just call them the Almighty Profits and just be done with it. But they went backstage to them, and they said the Final Testament found out what it means to get physical with them last week. Lashley said that he would beat Bronson Reed on Raw this Monday in another Elimination Chamber qualifier, and then go on to make WrestleMania almighty. I can see the Karrion Kross interference now. Karrion Kross and AOP. They're going to rear their heads on Raw this Monday night. They're going to cost Bobby Lashley the match. They're going to Australia. You're not going to leave Bronson Reed out of the Elimination Chamber match if this is his one and only shot to get on this show. And I still believe that had Seth Rollins not hurt his knee, he would be defending the World Heavyweight title in Perth against Bronson Reed. They started airing a couple of vignettes. He was teasing that he had his sights set. He had targeted a certain champion in the company. And he's on Raw. So that means he was targeting a Raw champion. He had already worked with Gunther, and that only leaves one. So I believe that was the plan. Seth would go in there. It would give Bronson a match on the show in his home country. And I think Bronson Reed is fucking awesome. I think the two of them would have had an excellent match. And it's someone for Seth to beat on his road to WrestleMania, on his road to face what would have been CM Punk. Punk got hurt and blew everything up. So this will be a different pathway onto the show for Bronson Reed, the big Aussie. He's going to go to the Elimination Chamber. And if Bobby Lashley ends up at the Elimination Chamber, it will not be inside the chamber. We'll get that 6-man tag that we did not get last week on TV. That's my prediction. We had Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, DIY, over from Raw to challenge Pete Dunne, and Tyler, I can't get that out of my head now, and Tyler Bate. The winners go on to challenge the Judgment Day for the undisputed tag team titles at Elimination Chamber. I was looking forward to this match a lot ever since we found out which two teams were going to be included. Bate and Gargano, they kicked things off, traded a whole bunch of pin attempts back and forth. The action spilled outside, things broke down, that took us to commercial. Back from the break, Ciampa hit an inverted DDT on Bate for a 2 count. All 4 men ended up in the ring again, and Gargano hit an assisted Poison Rana on Dunne. Gargano then hit a discus lariat on Bate. Bate, though, came back. He worked an airplane spin swing combo. Hey, Mr. Anderson, thank you for the sub. And everybody else, too, that has subbed over the past week. All of our new subs, thank you. We are getting a lot closer to 78,000. So help get me there. But here's Tyler Bate showing off some strength here. He's got Gargano on his back as he is giving a swing to Tommaso Ciampa. I didn't count how many revolutions. It was maybe 4 or 5. But it was still impressive. So after that, Ciampa hit a Project Ciampa on Tyler Bate for a near fall. Bate and Ciampa, they traded strikes. And Bate got the best of it until Ciampa kneed him right in the head and tagged in Gargano. Bate hit a double clothesline, taking down Gargano and Ciampa, and then hit a suicide dive on Ciampa outside the ring. Inside, though, Pete Dunne landed a bitter end on Johnny Gargano, and it was the bitter end for DIY. Oh, well. Really good match, as expected. This was not the takeover-esque quality match I know these four were capable of. I thought there was a chance we might get that kind of match given the stakes. You know, maybe they'd let it go through a couple of commercial breaks. But it was still very good. I said last week I didn't care who won. And I really did. I mean, it would have been cool to see DIY get another crack at the belts. If they want to hold off on it for another time, if they want to hold off on it for WrestleMania, that's fine with me. DIY will get their time. You know, I'm taking my victories where I can get them. For so long, these two were pretty much directionless on the main roster. Ciampa had a little bit more of a direction than Gargano did. I think Gargano got hurt. He was gone for a while. I'm just glad that they finally linked up and that they're finally together as a unit on this show. Their time will come. Just a matter of when. But I didn't care if it was them or, you know, Dunne and Bate. Dunne and Bate is great too because it's a fresh match now that we get in Perth that we never saw before. We get the Judgment Day against British Strong Style, tag team titles on the line. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great match. Do I expect a title change? I don't, but it's still going to be a great match. In the back, Dominic Mysterio said it didn't matter who won that tag team match tonight because when they go to Perth, they're going to lose to Finn Balor and Damian Priest. He also said Rhea Ripley would defeat Nia Jax and he would win the men's Elimination Chamber match. Now remember the reports that went around about what Dominic's first match was going to be at Elimination Chamber. Supposedly, the plan was for Dominic to wrestle Brock Lesnar. I say wrestle. The plan was for Dominic to run away as fast as he could from Brock Lesnar at the Elimination Chamber. So obviously that plan went to hell. So now he's going to be in the Chamber match. And then his opponent walked up to him. And his opponent in the qualifying match next week is going to be Kevin Owens, who obviously has had some experience dealing with the Judgment Day. He said that he would dedicate his win next week to the greatest luchador of all time, Rey Mysterio. I'm kind of surprised he's not back by now. I think he had a torn meniscus, and there was some talk that he might be able to make the Royal Rumble. You know, and now we're 2 weeks removed, right? Or almost 2 weeks removed from the Rumble. And there's been no talk about Rey or, you know, when he might come back. So I don't know when that's going to be. But Dominic left, and then R-Truth showed up behind Kevin Owens, and he told Owens not to get caught by Nick. And Owens said, are you talking about Nick Mysterio? But he said, no, Nick Aldis. And you could hear the fans live in the arena loudly chanting, "We want truth." They love R-Truth. Doesn't matter what show he's on, people love the guy. Now, at this point, I was looking at the time, and I was thinking to myself, you know, last week, they announced that Logan Paul was going to find out who his next challenger was going to be for the United States Championship. And I said, I wonder if they abandoned that plan. And then sure enough, like literally the very next segment, Nick Aldis is in the back with Adam Pearce, and who comes storming in? Logan Paul. And Logan Paul tells Nick Aldis, you're supposed to tell me who my challenger is supposed to be for the U.S. title. Instead, you've got me in a qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber next Friday in Utah. And he stressed, in Utah. Logan Paul does not want to go to Utah. Maybe if he's going to go skiing. But he does not want to go wrestle in Utah next week. So he's not happy about that. He said he should be getting the Rock treatment. But he'll do it anyway. He'll go to Australia. He's going to win the Elimination Chamber. And after he beats Seth Rollins in a rematch from last year's WrestleMania, he said he's going to be walking out a double champion. So, who am I facing next week? And Nick Aldis had a smile on his face. And he broke the news to him that his opponent next week is going to be The Miz. I thought it was hilarious the way that for a few seconds there, and like the way Aldis was carrying himself, they were building this up like, okay, this is going to be something that, you know, Logan Paul is going to have the big bug eyes. He's going to be like, whoa, no, you can't put me in the ring with this guy. And then it's just the fucking Miz. First of all, it's The Miz, number one. Number two, a guy that Logan Paul has already beaten before. So I don't know that if I'm Logan Paul, I'm necessarily shaking in my boots I mean, come on now. Come on now. I know he's a babyface and people cheer for him and they like The Miz for the time being, and in due time it'll go back to the way it was, but come on. Is that really much of a threat? Main event was Randy Orton against Sami Zayn in a qualifying match for the Chamber. There was a spot early on where Zayn went for a moonsault off the barricade, and it was a rare miss, especially with these two guys. But he went for the moonsault off the barricade, and it got real sloppy. Orton was kind of off to the side. He tried to catch him, but once he realized that he couldn't save the spot, he sold it anyway and then just fell down. So it just looked terrible. Orton then stuffed another dive attempt. Zayn, though, turned the tables and hit a back suplex on top of the announce desk. He just dropped him on the desk. And from that point on, Randy was selling the back. Yeah, and he was doing a good job, too. He was doing a very convincing job. I don't think he has to do too much acting. I mean, he had about a year and a half off to sell the back. So he did a pretty good job of it here. But Sami hit a tornado DDT. He climbed up to the top rope. Orton recovered and crotched him. And then he hit a huge superplex and immediately sold the back. Probably not a wise move if you are selling the back to be doing a superplex off the top rope. I'm not sure why. Think about the psychology of pro wrestling, though, right? Why exactly do people do superplexes anyway? Why would you do a superplex from the top rope or the top of the cage in a cage match? It takes as much out of you as it does your opponent. If anything, your neck is really what's being folded up on the way down. I've never really understood the psychology of the superplex. And now you got guys, Seth Rollins does it in every fucking match that he's in. It's supposed to be this devastating bump, and he does the superplex and then immediately rolls through and transitions into a Falcon Arrow. It's like, I don't get it. There are times I watch these shows and I just feel like, I don't know, wrestling has passed me by. That would be one of those times. But now we're picking nits, I guess, right? It's what I do. If I don't point these things out, who will? So then he got his patented snap power slam, but then he got dumped to the floor when he went for a draping DDT. Zayn tried a suicide dive and it connected. Orton fought back. He returned the favor from earlier in the match by lifting Sami up and dropping him down on top of the announce desk. He followed that up with a draping DDT inside, but he got rolled up when he went for the RKO. Sami then followed with a blue thunder bomb for a close near fall. And then Sami, and I actually like this finish a lot. As Sami was coming towards the ropes, he springboarded backwards, like a backwards leapfrog, over Orton's head, and he landed on his feet. And all Randy Orton had to do when Sami landed on his feet was reach back, hook the head, and drop him with an RKO. That's exactly what he did. Randy Orton is going to the Elimination Chamber. He's packing his bags for Australia. Sami Zayn will have to find something else to do. But I like that RKO spot. It was so simple. You know, it wasn't anything convoluted or off the top rope or anything. We've seen cooler RKOs, but I just really thought that was a well-done finish. And not a huge surprise. Again, I thought after that promo backstage earlier in the show, Sami might pick up what I would consider to be the upset win. It didn't happen. I honestly thought there was a good chance we would end up with a triple threat at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight title with Seth, Drew, and Sami. And Sami, if he's not going to qualify for the Chamber, and frankly, even if he does, unless he wins the whole thing, I don't know how he works his way into that equation. And if he doesn't work his way into the world title match, I don't know what Sami does. You know, maybe it ties into Gunther. If they're going to blow off Gunther and Jey Uso this month and not do that at WrestleMania, and they are going to do Jimmy and Jey, it opens up the question of what do you do with Gunther? Look, you know, Brock Lesnar being pulled opens up a whole bunch of different options for him. You know, Jey Uso could be an option, but so could Sheamus. You know, if Sheamus is ready to come back before WrestleMania, maybe he ends up on Raw somehow. And they could resume that story. Right? Yeah, maybe Sheamus can finish his story at WrestleMania. You've got Chad Gable. I'm going to keep bringing it up because I wish they would circle back to that story, even though it doesn't look like they're going to. But then there's Sami Zayn. And I wonder if they would consider doing Zayn and Gunther and starting a story with them. Me personally, I would rather them continue to build Sami the story of him trying to prove that he can be a world champion. And when the time comes, maybe he wins that title from Gunther. But the problem is, you got to really be patient then, because Gunther probably isn't even touching the world title, at least until the summer. And when he wins it, traditionally he has some pretty long title reigns. He went 800 some odd days in NXT UK as the NXT UK champion. He's already been the Intercontinental champion over 600 days. If he wins the World Heavyweight title, I'm not saying we need to see him with a Roman Reigns run. We don't. But they would probably want to give him some length with that belt. Maybe you could build something for WrestleMania next year in 2025. Maybe the World Heavyweight title match at Mania next year is going to be Gunther and Sami Zayn. To do it now for the Intercontinental title, I don't know if I would do it now. But if they wanted to, I certainly wouldn't argue against seeing the two of them in the ring together. I think that would be a fantastic match. That'd be a great match. I don't know that Sami would win. In fact, if it was me, I think he goes down. You do that match this year, I would probably put Sami down. Start your story right there. Let him work for it. A year later, he comes back, and then he beats Gunther. I like the idea of that more than him being the one to beat Gunther for the first time. Or at least being the one to beat Gunther for the Intercontinental title. I think that's a world title story that you could build. But Sami left the ring. He was very dejected and frustrated. Meanwhile, in the ring, Randy Orton turns around. And who does he see standing in the middle of the ring? Drew McIntyre. The human troll himself is standing in the middle of the ring, eyeballing him. The two of them come face to face in the center of the ring as the show closed. That Elimination Chamber match is going to have a lot more star power than it would have if it was Raw all by itself. To me, that just makes it far more interesting, the way they're doing it. And again, these are the men that they showed earlier tonight. I'm going to put this back up on screen here. So let's look this over here. Randy Orton has qualified. Drew McIntyre has qualified. Okay, so we have 2 of the 6 men already confirmed for the Chamber. I think that Bronson Reed is going to beat Bobby Lashley on Raw this Monday. So that makes 3. Logan Paul should beat The Miz next week. So that would be 4. Kevin Owens should be beating Dominic Mysterio. That would be 5. That way we also get Owens and Logan Paul back together in the Chamber. And then we get LA Knight, and he is wrestling Ivar. They made that announcement as well. He's going to be wrestling Ivar on Raw this Monday night. And this is where it gets a little like, I'm not so sure which direction they're going to go in here, because it really comes down to whether or not they want to do LA Knight against AJ Styles in Perth. If that's the case, then AJ should cost him the match on Monday, and then Ivar would go to the Elimination Chamber. And that's exactly what I predict is going to happen. I think that AJ Styles is going to get his revenge for what happened tonight. And Ivar, it's going to be maybe the big upset here of all these qualifying matches where Ivar goes to the Chamber. And they do that sometimes, where they'll throw someone in there that you would not expect to be in a match like this. Someone that doesn't really seem to fit if you have a lot of other big names in there. Think last year for the U.S. title, right? They put Montez Ford in the Elimination Chamber, and he shined. And then they didn't do a fucking thing with this guy again in the singles ranks. But that was last year. I think Ivar is going to be that guy this year. Bronson Reed was also in that match last year, if I remember. I think it was the U.S. title one. I think that was the one that Bronson Reed was in. And I think he'll be in this one too. But if LA Knight does qualify, and assuming that Logan Paul qualifies, they could do something with them in the Chamber, light that spark for a WrestleMania match. So I'm kind of torn, but that's what I think is going to end up happening. I just don't see why AJ Styles would not want to screw over LA Knight. LA Knight clearly cost him the shot at becoming World Heavyweight Champion. So if I'm AJ Styles, man, I'm in my black jeans jumping out of the crowd like a fan out of the crowd, and I'm screwing this guy over. And then we get the singles match between them in Australia. That's how I think it's going to go. But it doesn't matter. All of this it's a moot point anyway, because Drew McIntyre is going to win the Elimination Chamber. Drew McIntyre deserves that shot at Seth Rollins or WrestleMania. He's been too good lately. His promos, his ring work has never not been good, but everything for him and that character is just firing on all cylinders right now. And I honestly don't see a more attractive option. I really don't. Unless they want to make it a triple threat with Sami, and they seem to close the door on that tonight. But I think Drew is the way to go with this. As far as the show overall, I wish we would have gotten something more with Triple H and the Bloodline, but that's why you got to tune in next week, right? They got 7 weeks worth of television to fill between now and WrestleMania, and this is going to be one of the ways they do that. Both qualifying matches were very good. I thought the tag team match was very good, and the build to the Chamber was solid. So to me, this is a thumbs up show tonight. And in the Twitter poll, you guys seem to agree. There it is. Kind of speaks for itself there. 81% thumbs up, 19% thumbs down. I think that's even bigger. I think that's an even better score than what Dynamite got this week. I thought that was the best Dynamite all year. I don't think I would. I don't know that I would put this above that, but I thought both shows were very good. There's the Father of the Year, Christian Cage, there on your screen. The reigning TNT champion. All right, let's get to your super chats here. And I know we got some bombs to go through too. Thank you guys again for joining me here on a Friday night. The goal, by the way, for Be the Booker was 450 likes, and we are currently bordering on 600. Holy shit. We're not there yet, though. We're at 580 something, so get me to 600. Hit that thumbs up. Let's kick things off here with The Undertaker 2024. Is he running for office? I'm not aware of it. I really think they are building to a Rock versus Triple H match, even though Triple H is not supposed to wrestle. What do you think? My second question is, what happens if they actually have Roman go over against Cody? Madness and pandemonium. Roman should not be going over Cody 2 years in a row. As far as Rock and Triple H can't wrestle a match. Maybe he finds a surrogate to step in for him against The Rock. Otherwise, we're not going to get it. We'll get it as far as promos on television, but do I see them having a match? No, I don't. Holiday 197, I think we're getting LA Knight against AJ Styles at Elimination Chamber to close their feud with LA going over. So Styles will cost him his qualifier match. That's exactly what I think is going to happen too. Crypto and Poker, Triple H screws Cody at Mania and the Authority return. Oh my God, Crypto and Poker, please do not put that into the atmosphere. The Authority, led by Triple H, once again. We've already lived through that once before. Literally 10 years ago. So you're talking about bringing the Authority back 10 years later. At least this feels like it's a different spin on an Authority angle. I mean, there have been plenty of Authority angles in wrestling. You want to bring back the Authority. Yeah, thank God you don't have the book. Lakers Pats says, Rock versus Triple H ladder match for control of WWE. Are you trying to... all you people are trying to wish death upon Triple H? Now you're putting him in a ladder match? The hell's wrong with you? Let him pick a surrogate. Let him pick somebody. DEH, looks like Logan going full-time might be true. Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, I see no evidence of it. I haven't heard that he's going full-time, but hey, you know, if you're going to put a belt on somebody, it would be nice if they were full-time. Chris Miner, excluding Roman and Rock, if you look at the Anoa'i family tree in their prime, who would be the head of the table? My choice is probably Yokozuna. Yeah, I don't know who else it would be. Yoko would be my choice too. The Real CS, I don't know about you, but I used to like the WWE log belts. Were there some belts that I missed? Assume that means logo belts. Until they got lazy. In 2016, all the world titles, men and women, be the same design. It is very lazy. Very, very lazy. Very, very uncreative. Nick Grasso, I really like the segment with Bayley, Dakota, and Damage CTRL, but I don't believe for a minute that Dakota is with Bayley. Remember, Dakota is the mastermind, and I think that she will eventually stab Bayley in the back. I agree. Chris AXC, after last night's stream, one thing is for certain, Aaron Ruggiero got that tribal chief money. Here's my little brother $5. Another super chat coming. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Aaron, wherever he may be. The Carlosis, work, shoot, or somewhere in between. Gotta give them credit for making the road interesting and unpredictable. Surely, though, the destination is Rhodes beating Roman. You think they would make that mistake again? Yeah, I think they would make that mistake again, and they better not. They better not. Chris says, has AJ officially reached gatekeeper status? Does his career end as just another guy in WWE? Or does he have one more run elsewhere left in him? He's going to be a lifer in that company. AJ's not going to go anywhere. So I believe he will end his career in WWE. And look, he's the kind of guy, I feel like you say gatekeeper mode, I'll call it Nakamura mode. Because Nakamura was somebody who was never pushed as high as AJ was, but he got pushed initially. He had a certain status. And now he's at the point, and he's been at the point, where he fell down the card. And he's the guy who's like a utility player off the bench. They can plug him in wherever they need him to be. If they want him to be a babyface, fine. If they want him to be a heel, some evil anime villain, fine. They want to put him in a tag team with Rick Boogs, fine. Whatever role you need him to play, they'll call on him, and they know he'll deliver. AJ has basically reached that same point. I don't think AJ is going to be the focal point. He might get one more world title run at some point, but he's not going to be somebody who's going to always be in the top mix. He's going to be a little bit lower, one rung lower than the top. Maybe he'll win a mid-card title. Maybe he'll end up in a tag team at some point. And that's the role that he's going to play. That's the role I see him in. But I don't think he's going to leave. I think if he wanted to leave, he had a chance to go to AEW, and he chose to stay in WWE. He's obviously making great money. He's got friends in the company. He's got a good spot. He's got, I was going to say job security, I guess, you know, in the Endeavor era, who knows? Who knows what job security looks like, but yeah, I don't see him going anywhere. Dom Joseph, is this Rock Triple H beef a shoot? No. Could it turn into one at some point? It could. But no, it is part of the story that they have now come up with heading into Mania season. Arabian Knight, so it is Knight against Ivar. Will AJ cost him the match like he did? Starting to think we're not getting Knight versus Logan. Do you think they would do Randy against Logan instead? Also, Lashley loses to the Aussie on Monday. Yes, he does. Randy against Logan, I think, would be a good match. I still think the WrestleMania match is going to be LA Knight and Logan Paul. I still feel like they're going to get there. And I do feel like, promo-wise on TV, that's going to be the better way to go. That, to me, is the more appealing of the two matches. In the ring, like bell to bell, Randy Orton and Logan Paul, I think, is going to be a much better match than Logan Paul and LA Knight. But I think if you want, an opponent for him that can really make things interesting, on promos as they try to build up their fight at WrestleMania, I think LA Knight is going to be the far better choice. Brian Musha breaking in the brand new $28 super chat. Don't forget to point to the WrestleMania side. There are 8 SmackDowns between now and WrestleMania. Would you go over or under on Roman having 3 appearances on SmackDown? Over or under? Actually, 3 sounds about right. I'll say he makes about 3 or 4 appearances max between now and then. Ted Evans. To be honest, coming from someone that loved The Rock in the 90s to despising most part-timers, I'm excited to possibly see a Rock Farouk type with Roman eventually, or a Rock Farouk type story. Yeah, I dig that. I would dig that. Nah, maybe. Since Triple H can't wrestle, do you think Shawn can take his place? Can Shawn... So, you want to get that elusive Rock Shawn Michaels match that we never got? That ship sailed a long time ago. Rock and Shawn Michaels in 2024 just doesn't hit like it would have even 10 years ago. So, no, that's not going to happen. Barry MK, Seth really needs to do something. I know he's hurt, but yesterday Roman destroyed him with words, and he just stood there and took it. At some point, he really does need to get, he needs to throw some fists, like CM Punk said. He's got to punch somebody in the face. He wanted Cody Rhodes to punch The Rock in the face. And I think Seth Rollins is going to have to do that at some point also. But I don't know when they plan on doing that, if they're not going to do a tag match with Cody and Seth at some point against Rock and Roman. When Seth gets his revenge on Roman for all the mean things he's been saying about him, I don't know, but I think you got to do it at some point. Plus, you got the history there between them. Alex with the $10 super chat says, "Hey brother, so sorry for joining late last night. The question I had for you is, where do you rank the Bloodline and the finishing the stories all time?" I don't like ranking the stuff now because it's incomplete. Rock's out here calling himself a long gamer. For all we know, this Bloodline stuff could go another fucking 2 years, I actually did a countdown a few months ago, a little more than a few months ago, ranking what I thought were the top stories of all time. And I intentionally left the Bloodline, I think I left the Bloodline out, right? If I remember. Because it was still incomplete. And so I don't think it's fair to rank it if the story is still ongoing. Obviously, it'll be pretty high up there. I don't know that it would be my number 1. But it's hard to rank that kind of stuff when it's still going on. But if you missed it, go check it out. I don't know if I put it up on the channel. I think I did. I think it's up on the YouTube channel as well. But I specifically did a countdown of my top stories in wrestling history. Or at least WWE history. Yuri says, Triple H can't work, quote unquote. Rock hasn't proved he can either. Fair play. Fair play. ABK with that $412 bomb. My God. ABK. Always be killing it. ABK is always killing it here on these streams. This man is a beast.
It's ABK. Always be killing
it. Always. This man does not miss. The new one. The Rock hasn't been a heel in over 20 years. Oh, I don't know. Do you read some of the things people say about him in the on the movie websites? And after that whole DC fiasco? To some people, he's been a heel for the past few years. Anderson Blitz, if you can smell when The Rock is a Samoan bastard, he says. Base Beerus, you should do the whoa every time Cody's pyro hits. Maybe I should incorporate it somehow. I'll have to think about that. Rodimus Prime, what would you think about Bayley possibly coming out to her old theme at WrestleMania? I can see it happening and the crowd going crazy. What are your thoughts? The old theme, I like the old theme. Her old theme I thought was great. So I would love to see it. I think her using... Somebody asked me the other day about the Bayley buddies. And to me, at some point I could see her doing it for nostalgia. I wouldn't, for her to bring it back at WrestleMania for like a serious match like this, I don't know that I see that. But if they wanted to bring back her old music, I'm fine with it. I don't know if that gets into the whole CFOs and they're trying to phase out their music. I think that's a CFO song and that's a whole mess. So they may not be able to use it. I don't know. Base Beer says slap dust. Fahad, again, he accepts ABK's challenge, chiming in with a $226 bomb. It's like two warring countries going back and forth, firing at each other. What's going on here? Alex again says if The Rock interferes in Mania and tries to screw over Cody, do you see a scenario where AEW will allow Dustin Rhodes to make a one-time appearance to help out Cody and raise his hand when he wins? I would like to think that they would. Like if WWE said, look, we have this cool idea for Dustin to be a part of this, since this whole story is all about family. I would think that Tony Khan would be open to it. I know Tony Khan has no love for Triple H. I mean, he called Triple H and Shawn Michaels bald assholes on Twitter. So I know he does not like him. He does not want to do business with him. But for Dustin's sake, if Dustin wanted to be a part of it and went to him and said, look, this would mean a lot to me if you would let me go do this, I think he would do it. I think he has too much respect for Dustin not to. So if they came calling, I think he would let him do it. Dev to Dust, the first match I ever saw was Bret Hart against Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10. Well, that is both good and bad, because it's good, obviously, it's one of the best matches in WrestleMania history. But it's bad because where do you go from there? Well, I mean, I guess you go to the ladder match later that night, but you see those two matches back to back on the same night. It's like, where do you go from there? It's all downhill from there. 0 Point, can we not be dropping Randy on his back on the announce desk? Please and thank you. We'll tell Randy it was probably his idea. Yuri, Drew McIntyre is doing top tier character work. Yes, he is. Best work of his entire career. ABK again says, no Jay and Aaron, what a shame. Fahad will win, acknowledge me. Joseph Brooks, what's your opinion of Obafemi? Do you like his work and does he remind you of anyone? Also, is he main roster ready? He is not main roster ready. I have been impressed by him so far. I did see the match with Dragon Lee. I think that for someone at his experience level, and he's a big dude. I mean, that's why they love him. He's a big dude. But I like what I've seen so far. He needs to stay down there for a while. You know, let him grow, let him simmer a little bit more. And I could see him being a big star when he eventually gets called up to the main roster. Does he remind me of anybody? No, I don't think, not anybody specific. And that's fine. He can carve his own path, you know? I don't think he needs people comparing him to anybody else. Trey Johnson, The Rock definitely eats corn the long way, LOL. Well, that's what the sign said on Dynamite Wednesday night. I don't know how they know that, but if the sign said it in the crowd, it must be true. Groovy Goose, been having a rough week, but your stream, podcast, and reviews help cheer me up. Thank you, my friend. Well, thank you, Groovy Goose. I'm glad you could be a part of our little community here. Alex, what are your thoughts on WWE using gimmick matches as pay-per-view names while NXT pay-per-views get the classic names like No Mercy or Vengeance? I like that NXT is dipping into a lot of the old names. I love Halloween Havoc being used. I still, for the life of me, do not understand why we have never gotten Halloween Havoc on the main roster. But Shawn Michaels is using it in NXT. Vengeance became Vengeance Day. think there have been a few other. Well, they had No Mercy in September. That's another one. I feel like there was one more old name that they used. I don't know what that was though. But I like that they do it. And as far as gimmick matches, I've never been a fan of things like TLC as a pay-per-view. Hell in a Cell, I fucking hated that as a pay-per-view. Turning Hell in a Cell into a pay-per-view is what helped kill Hell in a Cell off for me, honestly. Because it just became Hell in a Cell because it's October, or whatever month it was. And that should never be the case. And at least they smartened up after whatever it was, 10 years or something. And they finally got rid of it. Actually, it was more, I think it was more than that, right? Wasn't Hell in a Cell a pay-per-view for like 12 or 13 years? I mean, it was ridiculous. That never should have been turned into a pay-per-view. Money in the Bank, they turned it into a pay-per-view. It still does well. Fine. I still think you could do Money in the Bank. Men's, one night of WrestleMania. The women's on the second night of WrestleMania. But they've turned Money in the Bank into a big deal. Money in the Bank, honestly, the last few years, and maybe now with War Games, it'll start to be a little bit different. But because Survivor Series no longer really did the elimination stuff, there really wasn't a focus on the elimination stuff much anymore. Money in the Bank overtook Survivor Series as one of the traditional like big four events. War Games is something I started arguing for. Oh God, what year was it? I want to say it was 2010. I think 2010 is the first time that I started a campaign on the podcast to take War Games and make it the new staple for Survivor Series. And it took years for it to happen, but finally it happened. Triple H brought it back in NXT first. I'll tell you what though, since we're talking about match types and gimmicks and stuff, they started this Iron Survivor Challenge in NXT. I think it was last year. Or the year before that. And you never know how these new concepts are going to go. I think it's smart to try out new things in NXT. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you never have to do it again. The Iron Survivor Challenge, I think, is something we will eventually see on the main roster. So that's something I could see adapted for Raw and SmackDown at some point. DEH says, Sean Ross Sapp talked about how a top star in TNA was thinking about asking for his or her release after the firing of Scott D'Amore. Do you think it could be Jordan Grace? I really don't want to speculate. If you force me to, though, Moose, from what I understand, is very upset. And he actually went on social media the other day when the news broke and said he was basically disconnecting and going off. He was logging off for a few days to basically collect his thoughts. Because he and Scott D'Amore are very close. Scott D'Amore helped train him. And under Scott D'Amore, he just recently became the TNA Heavyweight Champion. He's the world champion. So if it was Moose who is asking for his release and is very unhappy, that's not good. But I only put his name out there because of, again, how close he is to Scott D'Amore and what his reaction was to the news. I don't know. And it doesn't mean that Anthem is going to let them out of their contract. Just because they want out doesn't mean they're going to get what they want. But I'm going to be talking about the Scott D'Amore stuff, the Rossi Ogawa stuff. There's been a lot of upheaval recently with presidents and people in top positions in these wrestling companies. We had Tanahashi take over for Takami Obari back in December. They booted him out of there. It's just in such a short period of time, it's pretty wild to see all of the instability at the top in these companies. Yuri says, synthwave or retrowave? I love them both, but if I had to choose, I go with synthwave. As if you couldn't tell over the past few years by listening to some of the songs here on this channel. I'm a synthwave guy. Lars, do you think Bayley will get her old babyface music back at WrestleMania? And do we get the wacky inflatable flailing arm tube man? I don't think we get the tube man. I'll pop if we do. I think there's a better chance of getting the music back, but again, I just don't know legally if they could even use the old music. I hope they can. But if we get the old entrance back, even if just for one night, I'd pop for it. Arabian Night, are they going with Awesome Truth instead of DIY at WrestleMania? That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. I think that's what this is building to. I think Balor and Priest are going to retain in Perth, and I think the match at WrestleMania may be Truth and Miz. And look, you see how over Truth is. Everybody loves this guy. So how can you say, like, oh, that's not a worthy enough match? If R-Truth wins a title at WrestleMania, people are going to go nuts for it. Yuri says, Solo for Mets manager. Well, they could do a lot worse than me. AJ in TNA or Shinsuke in New Japan? For me, I go AJ in TNA. Edwin Garcia, LA should be drafted to Raw and challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. Well, if you're talking about drafting him, then yeah, maybe that'll happen in May. But it's not happening before WrestleMania. Oli AG with the $4.99. Triple H is my GOAT. I think a Hell in a Cell match against Rock would end his career amazingly. Oh, it would end his career. Absolutely. It would end his life, too. Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Oli AG, thank you. Alex says, Brother Solo, will you be reviewing Elimination Chamber immediately after or wait until the following day, considering the start time? I have not made up my mind yet. Most likely, I will be going live immediately after. I will probably be going live immediately after. I think the show here on the East Coast starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. So, I don't know. I will figure it out. I'm leaning towards going live, though, as soon as it's over. Maybe I'd give myself a buffer of an hour or two. But it's not going to be a case where I'll go live that night, or anything like that. So, not long after it ends, we'll be here on YouTube. Arabian Night, AJ and Lashley miss WrestleMania. I'll be mad. They're both free agents in 2024. Yeah, well, my guess is Lashley and his crew are going to be working the Final Testament. And AJ, yeah, they're going to have to find something for him to do. Yuri, Long Island driving or city driving? I know both suck, being a Long Islander. Why are New York roads so healed? Yeah, they do suck. They do suck. City driving, though, is... I would take Long Island driving over city driving. I don't live in Long Island, but I've been there enough times, and I've not driven in Manhattan. I refuse. I will not do that. I flat out refuse to do that. But the city is more than just Manhattan, obviously, and living in the city, I would take Long Island driving and parking over city parking. Don't get me started on that. Thunder Force, do you think CM Punk will be in WWE 2K24, even if it means waiting for him to be a DLC? Yeah, I mean, I guess he's not going to be in the game when it launches then, right? Yeah, I would expect a DLC for sure with him. Chris Bacon. Chris P. Bacon. Crispy Bacon. Was Mojo's face lightning a rib like... Oh, his face lightning on Mojo Rawley's face? A rib like Dusty's dots? No, that's probably just something crazy that Mojo came up with on his own. Because he's a crazy guy. Still to this day, I think Bruce Pritchard on his podcast still refuses to acknowledge that the polka dots were done as a rib on Dusty. It's amazing. Because apparently Dusty had polka dots as part of his look at some point very early in his career. And so the logic is, well, it's not a rib. He wore polka dots back in the day, and still trying to convince people that it wasn't done to embarrass him. You've got to be deep. I mean deep. In that bubble. In the Vince McMahon bubble. So you still believe that and be advocating for that all these years later. Yuri says, what would your Prime Kane dream match be? Prime Kane, man. Prime Kane was a beast. Prime Kane against Brock Lesnar. And you know what? Also, I'll throw in there Prime Kane against Prime Abyss in TNA. Waza 123 says, I really think Triple H's dodgy ticker could take one last people's elbow bump. I love how everybody is booking Triple H's demise here in the Super Chats. Like, what's that one last bump that Triple H could take? I tell you what. Maybe they could get Roman Reigns to spear him off the top of the Hell in a Cell through 6 stacked tables down below. What do you think about that? You think he'll get up from that? Well, you guys really have it out for this guy. Holy AG says, why can't Triple H wrestle? I just got back into wrestling like a month ago and thought he was having matches not long ago. I feel like a dumbass. No, that's fine. I mean, I if you're just getting back into it, then you probably have no idea. Triple H had some very serious heart issues a couple of years ago and almost died. He came very close to death. He has, is it a pacemaker? It's some kind of device. It might be a pacemaker implanted in his chest. And one of the recent WrestleManias, I think it was WrestleMania 38, was the first appearance that he made at a show since after his health issues. And he left his boots in the middle of the ring at the beginning of the show. And you do that when you signify that your career is over. So that was the end for Triple H. WWE Medical is never going to clear him. So yeah. But look it up. If you didn't hear about any of that stuff, that's why Shawn Michaels took over NXT. This is before Triple H took the book on the main roster. He was the one running NXT. NXT was his baby. And then he got sick and was going through what he was going through. And nobody knew at the time how serious it was. But Shawn Michaels stepped in and took over for him in NXT. And they blew up NXT. And it just became, basically about all new talent. And they moved a lot of the independent guys out of there. It was a whole big changeover. And now Shawn Michaels has become the godfather of NXT. Now it's his. And Triple H is running things on the main roster. But there was some question there for a while about whether or not he would even be able to come back at all, even just to do stuff, on the road or be a booker or anything like that, because nobody knew. It's going to be too much stress for his heart. Obviously now he's better. Getting in the ring and taking bumps, though, Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It's a defibrillator, which is bigger than a pacemaker. That's what he has in his chest. He has a defibrillator in his chest. And I guess if his heart were to stop or have some kind of an issue, it would kind of shock itself back into rhythm. That's a dangerous thing if you're going to be in the ring taking bumps. So that's why he can't wrestle. Bleed Boston, do you think there's any chance McIntyre leaves WWE? He's doing the best work of his career, and there is a good chance that if he stays, he will get the belt at Mania. I just cannot see him leaving right now. I don't see him leaving either. Where's he going to go? He's going to go to AEW? All right. I mean, that'd be a big pickup for Tony Khan, but I think Tony Khan has a lot of people as it is. He's about to announce 2 more, probably, in Boston next month. McIntyre is somebody who I think would be much better off staying right where he is. I think he'll be in a better position, honestly, in WWE than he will be in AEW, mixed in with all that other talent they have. I mean, I'd love to see Drew McIntyre against Okada, Drew McIntyre against Will Ospreay, Drew McIntyre and Kenny Omega. I mean, the number of fresh opponents for him to get in the ring with is staggering. I would love to see it. But I just think from his perspective, as far as how he's going to be positioned, I think WWE is the place for him to be. I don't see any reason for him to leave. If it's an issue of money and they're not willing to pay him what he feels he's worth, then yeah, he should walk. Right? Go get what you feel you're worth. That's what Mercedes is doing. All the noise about people who say, oh, she's not worth this, she's not worth that. You know what? Good on her. She's going where she is going to get paid. And she's going where she feels she's going to be paid what she's worth. But if they're willing to pay him, I don't see any reason why Drew McIntyre would go anywhere. Arabian Night, reason I think RKO over LA against Logan is because what does he do at WrestleMania? They will prioritize him first, plus if they're both in the chamber and Knight isn't, well, I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's not the match of the two that I would do. I know, everybody who's booking Triple H in matches against The Rock, put Orton in there. Let Orton be his surrogate. There you go. Randy Orton against The Rock. There's a match we never got. Closest we got to Randy Orton and The Rock was a handicap match, a WrestleMania 20. 20 years ago this year. It'll be 20 years to the WrestleMania that Rock and Randy Orton last shared a ring together. How crazy is that? Retro KOH. It was in 2010 you put out the idea for War Games at Survivor Series. You pitched it on Sound Off episode 127. Wow, this guy is an OG that he remembers that. That's right, it was. It was episode 127 of the Sound Off. I remember that because that was the episode where I just... The scenario that I pitched was, if Vince McMahon gets hit by a bus... And it's kind of a shame he wasn't. But if Vince McMahon got hit by a bus and I inherited WWE, right? Just roll with it. What would I do? What are the changes I would make? What would my business plan be? Who would I keep? Who would I get rid of? Like, I just laid it all out. And that was one of the ideas I pitched on that episode. So, yeah, I mean, once they finally pulled their head out of their ass and they decided to make War Games a Survivor Series thing, I said, well, you guys are awfully late to the party. I've been calling for this for over a decade. The hell took you so long? Mystic J, if Mercedes really is in AEW, who do you see coming to Bayley's aid if Dakota betrays her? This is why it would be such a perfect place for Sasha to come back. Although if Sasha came back to help Bayley in the build to WrestleMania, I don't know what Sasha would do at WrestleMania. Doesn't matter anyway, she's not coming back. Who helps Bayley? You know, that could be where Naomi factors into things. Maybe Naomi. Maybe Naomi comes to her aid. Yuri says TNA letting Scott go is bad business. Unrelated, Okada too talented to not be booked half-ass, be it in WWE or in AEW. Okada is one of the greatest of our generation. Too talented is putting it mildly. So yes, I would say let's not go and half-ass book Kazuchika Okada. Chris P. Bacon, more surprising return, Punk or Brett? Brett. Especially when you factor in the stroke and everything, and I never expected him to wrestle again. I just thought there's no reason for him to come back. He came back for the Hall of Fame in 2006, but that was just a one-off. So when he walked out there on that Raw in 2010, it was surreal. It was something I just had given up on thinking we would see. Yuri says Synthwave was the answer, brother. Retro is cool, though. They're both cool, but Synthwave is the way to go. Manuel Macias, Okada is going to WWE after all, huh? Also, who says that? Also, how likely do you think it is that Drew wins the title at Mania, or would you rather have Seth retain? I'd rather have Drew win the title. He already lost twice. I'd have him win it the third time. I'm kind of over Seth in this role. I think Seth needs to chase. He needs to be switched over to the role where he's chasing after the title and not defending it. Okada going to WWE, I don't know if you've seen something I have not, but it's not what I believe. Boots, do we get Izzy at WrestleMania 40 in her old aisle seat? You know, Izzy is wrestling now. Izzy is actually wrestling. She's in the ring. And I remember, speaking of ideas, I remember pitching the idea. I said one day, when I used to review NXT when it was at Full Sail, I said, you know, one day, this girl is going to come back to haunt Bayley, and she's going to beat the living shit out of her. We may yet get it one day. We may get Izzy from out of the crowd beating the crap out of Bayley and feuding with her. Don't think there's not a chance we might not get that. Super Pony, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? The Rolling Stones. Darius Harris, are you going live after Elimination Chamber? Yes, I am. Also, will you be watching at 5 a.m.? What's crazy is that SmackDown and Elimination Chamber will be 6 hours of... Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I forgot about that. That the Saturday shows now. So I would be live right now with you, let's say, right? It's 12:20 in the morning here. And I would be streaming after SmackDown. You know, on nights like this, I don't go to bed before 2 or 3 in the morning. There's other things that have to be done when I'm finished here. The idea of going to bed at 2:30 in the morning and then waking up to watch another watch another WWE show at 5 o'clock in the morning. What the fuck? Might as well stay live. Yeah, maybe we'll just do like we'll do like a watch along. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'll be live after the chamber. I don't know exactly when, if it'll be instant or maybe a few hours later, but... and I got a podcast to prepare for that Sunday as well, man. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Well, this is why I appreciate your support. This is why your support means so much to me. Allie says, sure, let's have Triple H wrestle Goldberg. Well, that'll end it for sure. You want to put the final nail in the coffin, you go ahead and book that match. Allie says, P.S. Goldberg sucks. Bring Raw back to Halifax. Yuri says, Bret Hart turnbuckle chest spot against Flair HBK corner flip turnbuckle spot. Oh, the Bret turnbuckle spot, easily, hands down. The other one is very sports entertainment. It's kind of ridiculous. It's a ridiculous spot. The Bret spot, you're going to launch somebody into the corner. He's going to take that turnbuckle like any normal person would. And he sells it like his chest has just been caved in. Like, it's a spot that actually looks brutal. And it's not even the spot, it's the sell. That's what it is. It's the sell of the spot. I love it. It's one of his signatures. Nobody does it like Bryan. Actually, nobody does it, period. There's nobody. I'm kind of surprised that nobody has adopted that spot as their own. It says also, favorite Owen spot / match. Hated him for the HBK Inzaguri spot. Owen did that thing where, I don't even know what you call it, but that thing where he, I can't even describe it. I'm not even gonna try. There's a spot that he would do in every match where he does this flip, like, on his head, and he flips back over to his feet, and he takes the guy down. I don't know what that's called, but I love that spot. And my favorite Owen match is probably my favorite cage match of all time. Owen against Bret, SummerSlam 94. Alex says, did you ever think about getting into pro wrestling? Maybe try out for WWE? As a wrestler? No. No. Arabian Night, what one wrestler do you think Triple H wishes he still had? Wait, what wrestler do you think Triple H wishes he still had? Yeah, Adam Cole. No, you know what? To me, it's a tie. The tie between Adam Cole and Samoa Joe. Those are two people that I think Triple H valued very much, and he would love to have the two of them back. I think he had a certain love and appreciation for those two guys, the way he booked them and used them. When Joe got fired the first time, it was Triple H who went to him and said, don't go anywhere else. I want to bring you into NXT. And then he got fired again. So those would be the two. Yuri says, what's a wrestler you hated that you grew to love? For me, it was Triple H and Owen Hart. A wrestler that I hated, that I grew to love. That's tough. I don't know. A lot of the wrestlers I hated, I still hate. I don't know if I ever hated Sid. I think there was a period of time where I just didn't maybe care for him. But Sid was cool, man. I gained an appreciation for him in '96 when he came back. And he was so over during that run. Like, you just look at the guy, and he just, like, if you were going to conceive of a pro wrestler, like, it would be Sid. He looked the part. He was crazy. His promos were all wacky, but he was just full of charisma. And there's just something about the guy that made you want to just cheer for him. And so I ended up being a big Sid mark there for a while. So, yeah, again, I don't know if I hated him, but he's somebody that I grew to appreciate. That at first I think I didn't really appreciate all that much. Maybe that was just me being a Hogan fan back in the day. When he dumped Hogan out of the Royal Rumble. GMB, do you spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool? I do not. Clone Force, Rock pulls a Tyson on Roman at WrestleMania 40. We were just discussing that possibility last night. It's very possible. I just don't know that they want to just rehash the same angle, you know? Zay, you're now a manager in WWE. Choose one superstar as your advocate. Well, before Paul Heyman snatches him up, I would love to be the advocate for Braun Breaker, because I know that Braun Breaker, I'm going to hitch my wagon to Braun Breaker, because Braun Breaker is going to be a future WrestleMania main eventer. That's where the money is. So I want to advocate for that guy. And Ali says, $1.48, the Canadian dollar got kicked by Goldberg too. Indeed it did. Fucking Goldberg. Waza has a super chat coming in. I grew to love Jim Cornette. And Yuri says, Sid is definitely cool. Loved him too. What is his best match? I loved the match that he had with Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden. I wish I was there that night. I don't know why I wasn't. I was watching it at home. That really, it's a very good match. I don't know that you're going to find, honestly, a better Sid match than that. Not saying it doesn't exist, but that's got to be at the top of the list. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what else I would put above that. As far as like a singles match, it's got to be that match. All right, let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Thank you guys for killing the goal. I upped the goal just a little bit, a modest increase tonight from 400 to 450, and we are at 715. So I think I underestimate. I should have made it even higher. I should have gotten even higher tonight. Hey, Alan has a super chat coming in, $2. Have your thoughts on The Miz improved over time? He is great. The Miz is good. I wouldn't say that he's one of my favorites. But The Miz has certainly proved to be a very valuable asset to this company in more ways than one. Not just in the ring, but outside the ring as well. So I will give him his just due. Do I see The Miz as a big attraction that I want to see in all these big matches on TV? No. No, I don't. And as I say that, Angry Miz Girl is very pissed at me on the screen. Great timing on that one. I pissed off Angry Miz Girl. How old would Angry Miz Girl be now? How old do you think she was when that match took place with him and Randy Orton? Because that was 2010, right? That was 2010? 2011? So Angry Miz Girl now is probably in her early 20s? right? Early to mid-20s. You think she watches wrestling? All right, let's book a tag team match here. We'll kick things off with the Steiner brothers. Speaking of Braun Breaker, Rick and Scott. A fine tag team. And the Steiner brothers are going to be defending those titles that you saw there in that graphic. They're going to be oh my goodness. What a match. I got to clap for that one. What a match. The Hart Foundation against the Steiner brothers. See, there's a match that I wish we would have been able to see. The closest that we got a match. It was for a Coliseum home video. It was not even like a pay-per-view match. We did get Brett and Owen against the Steiners. But we never got the Hart Foundation against... Actually, Brett and Owen against the Steiners probably is a better match. But we never got the Hart Foundation against the Steiners. What a fucking match that would have been. I love that. Love that. Two of the all-time great tag teams. All right, women's Be the Booker. We begin with Jazz, the former Divas champion. Remember Jazz and Rodney Mack? No? Okay, well, we'll move on then. Jazz is going to be taking... Oh, wait a minute. We have landed on Triple Threat. So Jazz is getting a second opponent. We're booking ourselves a Triple Threat match. Don't you love it when we land on the rando stipulation? All right. Jazz. Victoria. Oh, we need one more. We need one more woman from 2006 or 2007. One more woman who was probably harassed by Vince McMahon. All right, here we go. Jazz, Victoria, and Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Victoria is sort of the glue. I think that would hold things together. Not that Jazz isn't a veteran, but Jazz certainly is a vet with experience. Victoria was very good in her day. And you throw Ronda Rousey in there, and I think it gets by. I think it gets by as a pretty good match. I give that the bell. There you go. It's a little iffy there for a second, but I think that's worthy of the bell. And now we get to our main event. Our main event of the evening. Yokozuna. Somebody just asked me about him in the Super Chats. Who would have been the tribal chief of the Anoa'i family back 25 years ago or 30 years ago? It might have been this man right here. It might have been Yokozuna. And now, the moment of truth here in this main event. Yokozuna, one-on-one with the great Khali. We were so close. We just needed one last match. Yokozuna against the great Khali. Yikes indeed. Yikes is a good word for it. But since you guys did go above and beyond on the likes tonight, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to make this a triple threat match. We're going to add one more I don't know that anything can save this match. But we're going to make it a triple threat, and we're going to add a stipulation. How about that? I'll give you a third man and a stipulation because you were so good to me on the likes tonight. I feel I need to reward you for your kindness. Poor Ring. Yes, that's Snow Dog. Yokozuna, the great Khali, and Mark Briscoe. That's an interesting addition. Yokozuna, the Great Khali, and Mark Briscoe. Look, I love Mark Briscoe. Not even Mark Briscoe can save that. Not even... You know what? I shouldn't say that, because I'll tell you what. If they take Khali out of the match early enough, and we end up with Yoko before he became morbidly obese, and Mark, I actually think Mark Briscoe and Yokozuna, I think could be good. You just got to get Khali out of the picture. Take a pipe to his knee or something like that. Just go for the legs, you know? Bust his kneecap or something. He goes down, right? Let him lay on the outside for a while. Do Yoko and Mark, and I think we'll be okay. Now, let's see what the stipulation is going to be. Let's give these boys a stipulation. I love the randomness of all this. It just makes you think, like, what would that match look like if it ever took place? That's why I love doing this. All right, let's give it a stipulation. Great Khali, Yokozuna, and Mark Briscoe are going to have themselves a hair match. Okay, how does that work? Do both losers have to get their head shaved? I guess. I don't know. What a random, just absolute fucking mess of a match. I don't know what else to say. What else do you say about that? Just a random hot mess of a match. Yoko going bald. Man, amazing. Creflo $50, thank you for the $2. Are Larry and Balky an automatic bell? Of course. Absolutely. Perfect Strangers is one of the all-time great sitcoms. One of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. It went 7 seasons. Perfect Strangers, man, is the shit. Love Perfect Strangers. Yuri. Oh, hold on a second. Let me go back even further here. Retro KOH says, by the way, happy Lunar New Year, everyone. We are having celebration today. Yes, to anybody celebrating, happy Lunar New Year. That is correct. Zay says, Ms. Girl stopped watching after Miz's second world title win. I don't blame her. I would have too. Luke Cannon wants to know what my Super Bowl prediction is. You got to tune into the podcast on Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday, episode 848. I'll let you know who I think is winning the Super Bowl. And by how much. I do my annual, because, you know, the podcast drops on Sundays. So I do this every year. Every year, there's always a podcast on Super Bowl Sunday.
Look,
and boy, do we have
Samoa Bro.
Boy, do we have a lot to cover on Sunday. Boy, do we ever. Including a couple of unfortunate legal stories that, believe it or not, don't involve Vince McMahon, but they do concern wrestlers or ex-wrestlers. Yuri, let Solo solve it finally. For me and my friends at work, is Jarrett a main eventer or mid-card? I personally say mid, despite loving TNA. I've gone back and forth on Jeff Jarrett as a main eventer. You know, to me, he was always one step below. But I did learn to appreciate him more as the years went on. And you know what? To go back to the earlier Super Chat question, somebody asked me, was there a wrestler who I hated, who I gained an appreciation for? I might put Jeff Jarrett in that column. Because I used to hate Jeff Jarrett. His matches were like, whatever. I thought he was a good Intercontinental Champion, but I can't really say he was always one of my favorites. He had the success doing the Don't Piss Me Off thing during the Attitude Era there for a while. But I did gain an appreciation for him as time went on. I just don't, you know, when I think of great all-time main eventers, I don't think of Jeff Jarrett. I just don't. You know, but he's a legend, and you know, in his day, he was very good. I just don't see him at that elite level that I do a lot of other guys in the wrestling industry. Lady Fire Panda, thank you, Fire Panda, for the $21. On the topic of Cody being screwed by The Rock, it's times like this where I think to myself, what would Hulk Hogan do? Well, I think we know what Hulk Hogan would do. You know exactly what Hulk Hogan would do. That don't work for me, brother. WrestleMania is ending with the big leg. That's how it's going down. See, Hogan, when he came back in 2002, he was on his best behavior. He was doing jobs left and right. He lost to The Rock, although by the time the match was over, who got over the most? It was Hogan. But he lost to The Rock, then he beat Triple H, then he lost to The Undertaker, then he tapped out to Kurt Angle, then he lost in a bear hug to Brock Lesnar, and he was going to come back at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden so he can get his win back. And thankfully, they had enough sense to say, fuck off. Then he ended up coming back a few months later anyway. Can you imagine that if Hogan came back at the end of 2002 and beat Brock, was the first guy to beat Brock for the title in Madison Square Garden? Like that version of Brock Lesnar, which was just a physical beast like I've never seen in my life. And he loses to the leg drop and the big boot. You kidding me? Thankfully, they had common sense. And that didn't happen. Luis says, somebody tell The Rock to shut the hell up. That's right, Luis. You tell him. Luis, thank you for the 10 spot. I hope you're doing well. Retro KOH, Solomonster is better than the great Khali. You had a classic with Khali in the Punjabi prison. Oh, forgot about that. I tried to forget. Ali says, next WrestleMania, Rock against Jay. Samoa Joe on a pole. Devin from New Jersey, a solo. Seen any shows by ex-Sopranos writers like Mad Men or Boardwalk Empire? You know, I have not. I did not watch either one of those shows. I probably should watch Mad Men because I know people rave about that show. I haven't seen Succession. People rave about that. So. Juan Ocampo, buy or sell on their hatred and or disdain of said person. Brett for Goldberg or Cornette for Russo? Oh, nothing will top Cornette's. I don't even know if disdain is a strong enough word for it. But Cornette's hatred for Russo trumps all. It trumps Brett and Goldberg. It trumps Brett and Shawn back in the day. I mean, there's just... There's nothing I think that could top that. Yuri says, what year did you realize that Edge was primed for more? It's pretty early on. He just had that look. Maybe it was the hair. I don't know. They used to push a lot of guys with long hair back then. But I probably realized it with Edge after the Kurt Angle feud. So, what was that? The spring or summer of 2002? Around the time he won the tag belts then with Hogan. It was around then. Jazz. Rock. Keep my grandpa's name out of your damn mouth, slap. They did a parody of the Will Smith spot at the presser. Must have been a crazy pitch meeting. Creflo $50. I miss halftime heat with Rock throwing the sauce in Foley's eyes and Foley screaming it burns. And The Rock eating it and screaming it's mild and then kicking him. Yes. The first halftime heat was fantastic. It was great. Oh, the phone rings in the office. Rock picks it up. Mankind can't come to the phone right now. He's got his foot in his face or something and then kicks him in the head. Halftime heat was very entertaining. The Juliet, favorite TV theme song. Oh, there's so many of them. There's so many that I love. The Sopranos. Somebody mentioned The Sopranos. That theme. I love that theme. There's so many TV sitcom themes that were so great. Perfect Strangers and Full House. They used to have a sitcom on ABC. It was TGIF Fridays called Just the 10 of Us. I always loved the theme for that show. It's not a show that people would probably even know these days, but that's one of my favorites. But there's a lot of them, man. There's too many for me to name. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of TV sitcoms these days, but I just feel like it doesn't have the same. It just doesn't have the same appeal. Like as far as the opening theme and everything, it used to be like a big deal, and now everything is just kind of like, it's all kind of the same. Saved by the Bell. Yeah, Saved by the Bell had a good theme. Yeah. Golden Girl. Oh, yeah. People can shit on it all they want to. Golden Girls fucking rock, man. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Golden Girls is fucking great. Oh, yeah, the Step by Step. You're thinking of Suzanne Summers and Patrick Duffy. Yeah, Step by Step was another one. Yuri says, as mutual 90s kids, well, I love the 90s, but I consider myself to be an 80s kid. What owned your life outside of wrestling? For me, he says it was Power Rangers and Pokemon. For me, when I was growing up, it was He-Man and Thundercats. That's what it was for me. He-Man and Thundercats, and then a little bit later on, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was life for me. Allie says, favorite Sopranos character, and why is it Bobby? You can have Bobby. I'm taking Paulie. Some say he's still looking for the Russian in the snow. Yuri says, I work right by where Mick Foley met his wife via his book. Got any stories like that? Like what? Where wrestlers met their wives? No. I don't have any stories like that. Navy says, if Teddy Long was booking WrestleMania, The Rock and Roman would have a tag match on night 1, and night 2, Rock would go one-on-one with The Undertaker. Well, thank God Teddy Long is not booking WrestleMania. He-Man, Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, man, that's the shit right there. I wasn't a G.I. Joe guy. But that was it for me. That and Inspector Gadget. There's another great song, too, by the way. Creflo $50 Solo never had the makings of a varsity athlete. I didn't. Uncle June was right about that. I never had the makings of a varsity athlete. Otherwise, maybe I would have ended up in WWE. Transformers? No. I was aware of it. I was not really a big Transformers guy. Can't tell you why. Transformers, Voltron, all that kind of stuff. I just was not really that big into it. Ghostbusters. I was big into the Ghostbuster phase. Gosh, what else, man? Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles. Yeah, those are the main ones for me. Hey, NSJ, I remember Newhart. No, I'm dating myself here. I remember the Bob Newhart show. I sure do. Different strokes. Mr. Belvedere. Solomonster was the head of the school newspaper. I wasn't the head of the school newspaper. I had my own newspaper, believe it or not. I started my own newspaper and I had a wrestling column in the newspaper. I was the editor and the writer and the photographer. I was all those things rolled up into one. Cheers, yep. Used to watch Cheers, Three's Company. Punky Brewster. Anybody remember Punky Brewster? Charles in Charge. Never got into Frasier. Never watched Frasier. Or the reboot. Or whatever they're called. Whatever it is. Sequel, reboot. Chris P. Bacon. Cody got booed in AEW. Cheered in WWE. Why is that? Well, if you watched his presentation in AEW and the way he was booked and the way he would come out with an entourage that got progressively bigger every single week he walked out on TV, it was obnoxious. He got very full of himself. And that's why people started to rebel against him. I mean, at one point, he was coming out with Brandy, his dog, QT Marshall, Diamond Dallas Page, Aaron Solo, Dustin, and I'm probably still forgetting a couple of people. It was obnoxious. The best thing they could have done when he came to WWE was just have him go out there by himself. Not with Brandy or anybody else. And it paid off. You know, the fans love him. You don't have to take my word for it. Just watch the show. Yuri says, I didn't like Transformers either. I did like the mech stuff. Danny Huckins. I grew up on Batman, the animated series, and Disney's Gargoyles. I remember Gargoyles. I didn't watch it, but I remember it. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. We talked one day here. People got into a whole conversation about like old cartoons and stuff. Like, you know, Darkwing Duck and Dennis the Menace. Like, you know, Inspector Gadget. I used to watch all that stuff. The real Ghostbusters, Thundercats, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Ninja Turtles. I'm talking about the 87 cartoon. I feel like that there have been about 18 different versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Now they have some weird animation that just doesn't look right to me. But yeah, I used to watch all that stuff. Creflo says 90s X-Men cartoon was the best theme song. I don't think I watched that. Garfield, yes, Garfield was another one. Animaniacs, that was my brother. My brother watched Animaniacs. Animaniacs and Power Rangers, that was like after me. That was like the next generation. Oh my God, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Alvin and the Chipmunks, I used to watch that. God, I haven't heard Rescue Rangers. The last time I even heard that mentioned. I don't even know. Goof Troop. Boy, you're really refreshing my memory here. Tales from the Crypt. That was not a cartoon, but Tales from the Crypt I used to watch. Space Ghost was great. Space Ghost came later though. That was the 90s. Space Ghost had wrestlers on the show from time to time. I know Hogan was on there. I don't remember who else, but I know Hogan was on there at least once. The Tick. I never watched The Tick. Garfield Burke says Dustin Rhodes WWE return. Maybe for a one-off. But no, he's staying in AEW. There's Solo Khan on your screen. Oh, man. Yuri says Cody in AEW was doing too much. He was doing too much, and in a way, he was also doing not enough. Because the other thing that killed him was so early in that company's run, when he lost that match, I guess it was to Jericho, thanks to MJF, and he was never again allowed to challenge for the AEW World title. Once they took that away from him, that was a big mistake. And he admits that now. He admits that was a big mistake. He backed himself into a corner. That didn't help. Because there was a story there to be told about him going for the world championship and, you know, being a world champ like his dad. And they couldn't tell that story. He was pretty much just limited to the TNT title. Retro says, I'm giving you homework. Look up tattooed teenage Allen fighters from Beverly Hills. I will do that. I have no idea what that is, but I will do that. Oh, that's right. Randy Savage. Randy Savage was on Space Ghost once as well. That's right. Oh, how could I forget? I was a Beavis and Butthead guy. Used to love Beavis and Butthead. Oh man, always good to go down memory lane every now and then. You guys unlock a lot of memories in my brain. Some of them I try to suppress. So thank you for that. Thank you, by the way, for last night, the support, and the support tonight as well. Really blew me away. So I appreciate that. February is always an interesting month because it's a short month. It's usually short by a few days. So it ends up being, it's a good month, but it usually ends up being one of the weakest of the entire year. And so far, we're a little over a week in, and this is already all but guaranteed to be the best February that I've ever had here on this channel. So let's keep running up the score. I'm going to be back with you on Monday nights. We'll be live after Raw. Talk about that. And got Dynamite next week. SmackDown. You can find me here live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, unless I say otherwise. And a very, very big podcast coming up on Sunday. I will try to get it up as early as I can in the afternoon. I don't want to wait until right before the Super Bowl. But there's a lot. I have a lot of work ahead of me tomorrow trying to organize all my notes and get everything together. So that'll be episode 848 on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. You got me back up into the top 10 of all wrestling podcasts in the country on Apple Podcasts this week. So let's do it again next week. Rob G says, remember when Roman was number 30 in 2017? How could I forget? Didn't go over too well, did it? And Yuri says, once Cody couldn't win the AEW title, he was done. I love him, but yes, you are not wrong. And the Roman Emperor in the chat is not happy that Cody is going to WrestleMania, and he says that all the Cody marks will see at the end of WrestleMania. I guess he's implying that Roman Reigns will walk out the winner. I guess we'll have to see. You want to take that bet? Roman Empire? The Roman Empire will fall. Oh, Waza just had a wild thought here. He says, in 30 years, they'll be saying they were watching Solomonster on YouTube. Man, just like I was watching Dennis the Menace on TV as a kid, you're going to have people who will say, I watched the Solomonster on YouTube. That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, when you think about it like that, that's pretty scary. You know what's weird? You'll have people watching me on YouTube talk about shows from 35 years ago. Some weird, like, Inception thing going on here. All right, Roman Empire, he's convinced that Roman is walking out as the champion. There's a lot of people that believe that. We shall see. Thank you guys again. Be well. Stay safe. Have yourselves a great weekend. I will see you Sunday for episode 848. Big podcast coming up. Don't miss it. Thank you for the love. I'll see you guys then.